With well over 60 parks covering hundreds of acres in Clackamas County, the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District provides numerous developed recreational opportunities. Many of the parks also contain an impressive array of natural features. They include wetlands, Oregon white oak floodplains, salmon-bearing creeks, and buffering areas along those creeks called riparian zones. They provide quality habitat for plants, birds, and other wildlife. For many years, the management plan was to leave natural areas alone.
Natural areas had been left free to grow, basically, but there was the realization that these areas actually do need maintenance, just like other areas of the park, like the playground areas.
Several years ago, North Clackamas Parks and Rec hired Tanya Burns as Natural Resources Coordinator.
My duties are kind of threefold: surveying and inventorying the natural resources, figuring out what their current conditions are, and then I do outreach and work with partners to try to enhance them and improve those systems. And then I do a lot of education, both internally and with citizens, and I work a lot with volunteers.
Funding for a natural resources program in the park system was not always a priority. But citizen outreach by the district identified that more people dealing with the stress of urban density are finding increasing value in natural areas within their neighborhoods.
Natural areas are a good place for recreationists, bird watchers, and walkers, and they also function to support ecosystem services, so they help provide clean water and clean air. And so I think in general our society is realizing that these areas provide multiple benefits to the communities.
Over 150 years of urban development has made managing natural areas a big job. Too big for the Park District's program budget for natural resources.
Your priorities are based on your funding levels, and at this point in time we don't have the funding in order to tackle all of the projects, and so prioritizing the projects is a huge task. First, we need to assess what we have and what the current conditions are, and then we need to prioritize how we're going to address each one of these issues and how much funding it's going to cost in order to actually take care of those and restore these systems back into healthier habitats.
The top priority of the program is to effectively remove non-native plants and reestablish native vegetation. Eradicating or controlling invasive species dominates spending by both natural resources and park maintenance.
We have a lot of land that has been predominantly taken over by invasive plants and some invasive wildlife. Invasive plants have adapted themselves to germinate earlier than native plants, to grow faster and taller, and therefore they use up more of the water and the soil minerals and nutrients, leaving less available for native plants. And why this is also a concern is that our native wildlife need the native plant materials in order to also grow and thrive.
Burns and her part-time crew on this day are working in North Clackamas Park in Milwaukee to establish new native plants. In order to be most efficient, the crew references natural native ecosystems and empirical information to select the proper plants.
It is very important that the different species get planted in the correct locations, because they all have different light requirements and different water requirements.
We decided to plant spirea here because we noticed that naturally up the creek is a really healthy population of spirea. So if something's already existing in a disturbed area, then we want to use those native plants because we know that they're going to do well in those systems.
What are you doing right here, Adam?
Well, kind of cutting up the reed-canary grass. This is really good for covering over the plants that we just put in the ground and completely shading them out and killing them. So we come in here, we cut out the reed-canary, and gives us our plants a little bit better chance of survival. The other big thing they do is, aside from shading them out, they also really suck up the water. So if we can kind of keep these cut down and cut back, they won't take up as much water during the dry months, again giving our baby plants a better chance of surviving. So
one of the important watersheds in the park system is Mount Scott Creek. This section of the creek is exposed in North Clackamas Park. For the health of the salmon in the region, the crew is trying to put shade on the creek to keep water temperatures lower during hot summer months. They are planting trees for shade and shrubs for wildlife habitat in the riparian buffer zone next to the creek.
We've got a patch here that we planted last year. We've protected it from deer chewing with a cage, and I'm just going to put some more in around it to create a nice natural cluster of Indian plum, how they normally grow.
Because of expense, the exact species of the desired native plants are not always available, but by purchasing plants with bare roots and in bulk, appropriate substitutes can be found that usually cost between 60 cents and $1.
So we got some western red cedar here. This is going to go to Mount Talbert Nature Park. We store these plants in bags because the roots are exposed and we want to keep them moist. We've got a bunch of other plants that we're planting. Here's the state flower of Oregon, the tall Oregon grape. This is going to also go in at Mount Talbert. And we've got some spirea. It's a native spirea. It's got great purple flowers. We got Indian plum, and we've got big leaf maple here.
Oak habitats like this one in North Clackamas Park are a priority because it's estimated that only 3% of oak habitats remain. With only one full-time staffer, a limited budget, and so very much to do, the Natural Resources Program is dependent on other ways to accomplish its goals. It directs its funds towards areas where it can cultivate partnerships, or where volunteer groups or other agencies are already working on a project. Forming partnerships also helps garner grants that augment the natural resources budget. Some of the partners are Clackamas County Soil and Water Conservation District, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, Oak Lodge Sanitary District, Metro, as well as friends groups and watershed councils.
This planting that we're doing here is has been funded through a Metro Nature and Neighborhoods grant.
The program also has a close relationship with school groups. It provides an educational opportunity for the kids, while they in turn provide much-needed volunteer hours. This group from a local elementary school is removing non-native species at the largest natural area in the district, Mount Talbert Nature Park.
Volunteers and school groups come to the sites to either do service learning projects or community service, or just because they want to lend a hand in a park that they feel committed to. After getting a little bit of education about why they're doing what they're doing, then we of course go through a safety talk and make sure that everybody's going to be safe and stay hydrated and wear enough sunscreen. Most of the time we try to implement a task which would be an ordinary task that we would have to do ourselves, but we get that school group or that group of volunteers involved. We try to focus on providing some base education about the history of the site and the ecology of the site, and then we try to give them a background about why we would be doing the task that we are doing. So if we're removing invasive plants, we give them a little background about why invasive plants are a concern. We would go through some information like invasive plants use resources that native plants would need in order to grow and thrive.
That is a scratch broom that's having a hard time living in such moist soil.
That looks like fun.
So do you remember what these little bunches are here, the darker colored things that are a little bit taller? Do you remember what those are and why they would be living here?
Because it's wet and moist.
Good job, you are a listener. Very, very good. They're called sedges.
And then we always try to do a debrief try to learn, you know, like what did the people get out of the project, and then also if they have any suggestions for or future recommendations.
In addition to her work in ecological restoration, Burns lends assistance to park planners and maintenance staff to create a more holistic approach to establishing sustainable ecosystems for the parks so they more fully serve community needs and provide a respite in a chaotic world.
These parks, these natural areas, are extremely important for urban people to have these little pockets all around our area for people to just take a break. To take a break to get some good physical exercise and to get some mental clarity.
Despite an uphill battle against very difficult odds, for Burns, the work is not just a job.
I actually thought I was going to be a doctor, so I did, you know, biology and pre-med, but I realized that maybe it wasn't people that I wanted to help fix, but it was natural systems that I really wanted to focus on. It's truly me because I am a user. I use parks. My appreciation of what I'm doing is at a level in which it's a passion and not just a job.